Letter 9. To the Honourable Daines Barrington. Byfield, near Andover, February 12, 1771. Dear Sir, you are, I know, no great friend to migration, and the well-attested accounts from various parts of the kingdom seem to justify you in your suspicions that at least many of the swallow kind do not leave us in the winter, but lay themselves up like insects and bats in a torpid state, to slumber away the more uncomfortable months till the return of the sun and fine weather awakens them. But then we must not, I think, deny migration in general, because migration certainly does subsist in some places, as my brother in Andalusia has fully informed me. Of the motions of these birds he has ocular demonstration for many weeks together, both spring and fall, during which periods myriads of the swallow kind traverse the straits from north to south, and from south to north, according to the season. And these vast migrations consist not only of hirundines, but of bee-birds, hoopoes, oropendolos, or golden thrushes, etc., etc., and also many of our soft-billed summer birds of passage, and, moreover, of birds which never leave us, such as all the various sorts of hawks and kites. Old Bellon, 200 years ago, gives a curious account of the incredible armies of hawks and kites which he saw in the springtime traversing the Thracian Bosphorus from Asia to Europe. Besides the above-mentioned, he remarks that the procession is swelled by the whole troops of eagles and vultures. Now, it is no wonder that birds residing in Africa should retreat before the sun as it advances, and retire to milder regions, and especially birds of prey, whose blood being heated with hot animal food, are more impatient of a sultry climate. But then I cannot help wondering why kites and hawks, and such hardy birds as are known to defy all the severity of England, and even of Sweden and all North Europe, should want to migrate from the south of Europe, and be dissatisfied with the winters of Andalusia. It does not appear to me that much stress may be laid on the difficulty and hazard that birds must run in their migrations, by reason of vast oceans, crosswinds, etc., because if we reflect, a bird may travel from England to the equator without launching out and exposing itself to boundless seas, and that by crossing the water at Dover, and again at Gibraltar. And I, with the more confidence, advance this obvious remark, because my brother has always found that some of his birds, and particularly the swallow kind, are very sparing of their pains in crossing the Mediterranean, for when arrived at Gibraltar they do not, ranged in figure, wedge their way, and set forth, their airy caravan, high over seas, flying, and over lands with mutual wing, easing their flight. Milton. But scout and hurry along in little detached parties of 6 or 7 in a company, and sweeping low, just over the surface of the land and water, direct their course to the opposite continent at the narrowest passage they can find. They usually slope across the bay to the southwest, and so pass over opposite to Tangier, which it seems is the narrowest space. In former letters we have considered whether it was probable that woodcocks in moonshiny nights cross the German Ocean from Scandinavia. As a proof that birds of less speed may pass that sea, considerable as it is, I shall relate the following incident, which, though mentioned to have happened so many years ago, was strictly matter of fact. As some people were shooting in the parish of Troughton, in the county of Sussex, They killed a duck in that dreadful winter 1708 to 1709, with a silver collar about its neck, on which were engraven the arms of the King of Denmark. Footnote. I have read a like anecdote of a swan. End footnote. This anecdote the rector of Trotton at that time has often told to a near relation of mine, and, to the best of my remembrance, the collar was in the possession of the rector. At present I do not know anybody near the seaside that will take the trouble to remark at what time of the moon woodcocks first come. If I lived near the sea myself, I would soon tell you more of the matter. One thing I used to observe when I was a sportsman, that there were times in which woodcocks were so sluggish and sleepy that they would drop again when flushed just before the spaniels, nay, just at the muzzle of a gun that had been fired at them. Whether this strange laziness was the effect of a recent fatiguing journey, I shall not presume to say. Nightingales not only never reach Northumberland and Scotland, but also, as I have been always told, Devonshire and Cornwall. In those two last counties we cannot attribute the failure of them to the want of warmth. The defect in the west is rather a presumptive argument that these birds come over to us from the continent at the narrowest passage, and do not stroll so far westward. Let me hear from your own observation whether skylarks do not dust. I think they do, and if they do, whether they wash also. The Alauda pratensis of Ray was the poor dupe that was educating the booby of a cuckoo mentioned in my letter of October last. Your letter came too late for me to procure a ring ouzel for Mr. Tunstall during their autumnal visit, but I will endeavour to get him one when they call on us again in April. I am glad that you and that gentleman saw my Andalusian birds. I hope they answered your expectation. Royston, or grey crows, are winter birds that come much about the same time with the woodcock. They, like the fieldfare and redwing, have no apparent reason for migration, for as they fare in the winter like their congeners, so might they in all appearance in the summer. Was not Tennant, when a boy, mistaken? Did he not find a missel thrush's nest, and take it for the nest of a fieldfare? The stock-dove, or wood-pigeon, Enis ray, is the last winter bird of passage which appears with us, and is not seen till towards the end of November. About 20 years ago they abounded in the district of Selborne, and strings of them were seen morning and evening that reached a mile or more. But since the beechen woods have been greatly thinned, they are much decreased in number. The ringdove, Palumbus ray, stays with us the whole year, and breeds several times through the summer. Before I received your letter of October last, I had just remarked in my journal that the trees were unusually green. This uncommon verdure lasted on late into November, and may be accounted for from a late spring, a cool and moist summer, but more particularly from vast armies of chafers or tree beetles, which, in many places, reduced whole woods to a leafless, naked state. These trees shot again at midsummer, and then retained their foliage till very late in the year. My musical friend, at whose house I am now visiting, has tried all the owls that are his near neighbours with a pitch-pipe, set at concert pitch, and finds they all hoot in B-flat. He will examine the nightingales next spring. I am, etc., etc.